As we mentioned a moment ago, the FBI executed a search warrant at the Fulton County, Georgia Elections Office yesterday. A spokeswoman for the county confirming to MS Now, agents at the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center were focused on the 2020 race where Joe Biden defeated Donald Trump and flipped the state. Agents searched for evidence of alleged voter fraud and potential violations of a federal statute that requires officials to maintain presidential election records for 22 months. That's according to a copy of the warrant obtained and verified by MS Now. The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was spotted during the search. It's worth noting her office has no law enforcement powers. Joining us now, the former mayor of Atlanta, now a Democratic candidate for governor of Georgia, Keisha Lance Bottoms. Mayor Bottoms, it's great to have you on with us this morning. Few people are more plugged into Atlanta than you are into Fulton County. What more have you heard about this FBI raid yesterday and the justification for it?
Nobody knows the answer to that. There was no coordination with the clerk's office, with the district attorney's office, and as far as I know, with local law enforcement, which is highly unusual. Anytime you have a federal operation in a specific jurisdiction, there's normally a heads up. And what makes this even more baffling, we know that there are corporations that are sometimes criminal defendants. Sometimes there are individuals who are criminal defendants. But to go after a government in this way really is an abuse of power and creating a level of anxiousness with elected officials and with people like me who worked very hard to turn out the vote in 2020. We don't know where this is going. And then I'll just point out, we have early voting that begins in less than 3 months in this state. So the question becomes, is this really about 2020? Or is this really about 2026? We don't know the answer to that.
I think you're asking the right question, something John's been talking about this morning as well. You were mayor of Atlanta in 2020 during that election. The governor, Republican, the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, Republican, two men who supported Donald Trump and famously rebuked him when he had that infamous phone call seeking nearly 12,000 votes so that he could actually take the election. Can you just remind our viewers about how meticulous and repeated the counting of the vote was in 2020?
So anytime you have an election, if there is a question about the election, which Donald Trump raised, there's an opportunity to count these votes, to recount these votes, and to make sure that they are appropriately certified. And what makes it even more bizarre about his focus on Fulton County is that a Republican presidential candidate has not won Fulton County since 1972. So even in 2020, Donald Trump lost Fulton County by more than 200,000 votes. He lost again in 2024 by more than 200,000 votes. So this is not an instance where we have a close election, say even my election that was decided by less than 800 or roughly 800 votes when I was elected mayor. This was not even close. So his focus on Fulton County is just, in a word, bizarre. And we don't know what it means for the people of Fulton County as we enter this midterm season.
So, Mayor Bottoms, news that ICE has opened up a new office just outside Atlanta this week. It is perceived by some as perhaps a sign that Atlanta could be a city that the agency will target in the foreseeable future for a surge. It hasn't yet. Still may. You are running for governor. If you were elected, how would that dynamic work? Explain to us how you would oversee the relationship between the state government and the federal government over immigration operations, and in particular, ICE surges.
Well, we had an opportunity to work with ICE when I was mayor. And the reality is this, we have federal partnerships all of the time, whether we are working together to coordinate public safety for big events, say the Super Bowl, or if you're trying to get a violent criminal off of your streets. But when ICE is being irresponsible, then we as leaders have to respond accordingly. As mayor, during the family separation crisis, when I could not get reassurances from the Trump administration that ICE would not separate families and detain them in our city detention center, I made the decision to end our relationship with ICE, to end a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract with ICE. So I think that we have to examine this on a case-by-case basis. As governor of the state, I'll look at what our relationship is with ICE. Is ICE acting responsibly, or are they putting our citizens and even our law enforcement in danger? When you come into a jurisdiction, when you come into a state and you are not coordinating with partners on the ground, you are putting everyone in danger. We have seen this play out, unfortunately, in Minnesota, and it's my hope that we won't have a repeat in Georgia.
Mayor Bottoms, apart from your being a candidate for governor, what are your thoughts as a citizen who relies on the federal government often, for what's happening to the Department of Justice and the FBI in terms of being involved in clearly a political operation like this?
I am deeply troubled. I have been an attorney for over 30 years. I had an opportunity to serve as a Pro Hac magistrate judge in Fulton County. And what I am seeing is something that I've never experienced in my lifetime. Congressman John Lewis was my congressman, and I'm often reminded of his statement that the right to vote is almost sacred. And if we don't use it, we will lose it. And what we are seeing happening and playing out in Fulton County right now is an effort to take away that right to vote, to take away our ability to trust in free and fair elections. There have been victims in this case. Victims like the Fulton County workers who were terrorized by Rudy Giuliani and these false narratives around votes in Fulton County. And, you know, unfortunately, Donald Trump did project to us what he would do. He said this would be a term of retribution. And unfortunately, we are seeing it play out in real time. He's already endorsed a candidate on the Republican side in the governor's race in Georgia. And so I can't help but wonder what these actions on the ground in Fulton County will mean for free and fair elections in 2026 and beyond.
As you think about that election coming up here in the fall, we talk a lot about immigration. Obviously, the American people, according to polling, even this morning, we're showing do not like what they're seeing. But in some ways, that's been overshadowing lately the questions about the economy and that people are struggling in this country and don't think that President Trump is doing a good job with the economy. So as you move forward in your campaign and you've been talking to voters, what are the big issues you're hearing about, and what do you think will be decisive in that election, but also in elections across the country come fall?
Every single stop that I've made in the state, the issue of affordability has come up, whether it's utility prices or health care. Georgia is one of 9 states that have not expanded Medicaid. So even before the big ugly bill, we already had a health care crisis in the state. We've had 9 rural hospitals to close with the ACA subsidies being taken away. 1.5 million Georgians have seen their premiums skyrocket. I have a very close friend who owns a small business. Their premiums were around $650 a month for her family. She told me they've gone up to over $2,200 a month. This is happening and it's playing out across the state. I've talked with several voters who have experiences. We have birthing centers that have closed. We have an ICU unit that is closed in this state. So it's a concern for people throughout the state, whether you are a Medicaid recipient, a small business owner, someone who's relied on these subsidies. Affordability is on the ballot. So when I hear Donald Trump say that it's a hoax, clearly he doesn't exist in reality. It's what people are concerned about, and it's the #1 issue on the ballot.
Democratic candidate for governor of Georgia, former mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again along the campaign trail. Thanks for being with us this morning. We appreciate it.